Can I tell an anecdote?
Yeah, do.
One instance when I had a big row with the National Foundation for Educational Research, because one of the controversies I got involved with very early on after going to the Institute was the way they were doing their testing.
Mm-hmm.
They were using something called the Rasch model, doesn't matter what that is, to do their testing and evaluate their tests. And I was very critical of this. For some of the similar reasons, I'm critical of PISA and the way they eliminate items of their tests, things we discussed earlier, because they use the Rasch model, or a version of it, to do that. And the poor old Department of Education civil servants didn't know what to make of this highly technical debate, and I wouldn't let go, and they got very worried because I was attacking them in public, well, through the literature, and they were very, they didn't want this to surface. They didn't want arguments about the underlying technology for this, and it was getting a bit embarrassing for them. So they had us along to a couple of seminars. So there we all were. We spent a day. They would present stuff and I would present stuff, and the civil servants would all sit around the room and we'd debate. And the first one went by and nothing happened. Nobody really understood. They never saw what was going on. So they then called a second one. And the reason they called a second one was I said, look, I will analyse the same data as them. They give me access to it. And we'll compare what we do. And I will try and demonstrate that what they're doing isn't terribly good. So that they did. They gave me access to it, and we all turned up at the seminar. And I'd done it their way, and I'd done it my way. So I knew what was it. They'd done it their way, and they came along and they presented their results. And I looked at this result, and of course I'd done their analysis. I queried. I said, "No, have you done it right?" And they looked. I said, "Oh, yeah." Anyway, it turned out after half an hour they'd actually made a numerical mistake where it was downhill then. Now, the mistake didn't matter. Any of us could have done it. It was a stupid mistake. But they had shown they weren't 100% mathematically competent and finished them. It literally finished them. It was not, I wasn't proud of having won an argument. I didn't win it on merit. I won it because they made a silly mistake. And it was a real eye-opener, actually, because the civil servants knew that you could make an arithmetical mistake. They knew there was a right and wrong, and they had to admit they were wrong in the meeting. It was very interesting, actually. So there, and then there was a feud going on in the NFER between who was going to succeed as director, and the candidate who got it was very wily. Immediately took my side against the other guy who was left supporting the guys that made a mistake, and because he was associated with them and the ignominy. That was fascinating. It just shows you how these things happen.